Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishna Project podcast. This is episode number 86. A big thank you to everyone who continues to tune in on a regular basis from all over the world to hear what our guest has to say, not what I have to say, what the guest has to say. I cannot believe it that we've made it to our 86th episode. As you know, on this podcast, we like to discuss real issues about devotees, allowing devotees to share their stories. Those of you that watch every week will have probably noticed that we've done a bit of a world tour recently. We've been to the United States, and now for this week's episode, we're coming back to Britain. Before I introduce the guest, must all remind you all, if you're watching this on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button so you keep updated about this podcast and future video productions from the Hare Krishna Project. And also, if you're watching this on Facebook, please do like or love, not like or love, follow or like, I can't remember all the different words, the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page, so you're also updated, keep updated about future podcasts and things that the Hare Krishna Project team are doing around the UK. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome our guest this week. It's Jennifer. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's great to have you with us. A big thank you for allowing me to twist your arm to be the guest on the podcast this week. I've known of you for some time. I say that to every guest, and they think, "Oh, what's he spying on me?" I've known of your existence for some time. Oh, he's a bit of a. The thing with social media, you kind of see people and and I've been seeing Jennifer online for a while. Jennifer, the first question is the question I ask every other guest when they start is, please tell us a bit about you and where you're from.
Yeah, well, I'm from Barnoldswick, which is between Skipton and Burnley, on the edge of the Yorkshire Dales. I'm married, and well, it's now a civil partnership with Julia. We've been together since 1981. We've got
a long time.
two grown-up children, one who lives in Germany, Laura, and a son who lives in Salford, Manchester, Nick. What else? We've got a couple of rescue guinea pigs down there somewhere in the living room. I'm a vegan, and I'm interested in a lot of different spirituality things, but
Great.
a slant towards Vaishnavism.
Did you have like a religious upbringing of any description?
Yeah, my family are Christian, particularly my mother and my two brothers. I've two brothers. My older brother is more liberal Christian, but my younger brother and my mother are very much evangelical. I mean, my younger brother believes that transgender and gay is a sin. And he once said that I'd caused Julia to sin by changing my gender.
Julia's your civil partner.
Julia's my spouse. I mean, I hate the word partner. It sounds like a business venture.
It is, isn't it? It's very informal as well. My partner,
Wife sounds a bit odd. So, yeah, I'll use a name. So if I'd mentioned Julia, you know what I'm talking about.
Julie.
In this a lot, yeah.
Just to say very quickly, I'm going off at a tangent already. Do you remember in Only Fools and Horses when Dale Boy used to introduce Raquel, his wife? You know, he didn't say wife. He said, "This is my significant other." And it was like and whenever the audience always laugh whenever he said it. Okay, so your spouse, Julie. Okay, Julia.
Yeah.
Okay, Julia. Tell us a bit about. So religious upbringing. What was that? What particular denomination was that?
Well, it was Church of England, but it was a strange upbringing. It was. No, I mean, but I know, like, I've seen a lot of evangelical people have had evangelical upbringings, you know. But mine was really odd. Like, I was taught that Jesus didn't actually perform miracles. He walked on sandbanks and things like that, and it was like that. And
wow, which denomination? This was Anglican Church of England, was it?
Yeah, and I was taught that, like, I was never taught to pray or anything like that, but I was sent to Sunday school. And you were expected to go to Sunday school. And when I became interested in Hare Krishnas, you know, when I was 15, there was a lot of trouble. My dad was saying, like, "Oh, you're bringing idols into the house," you know, and didn't like me burning incense. And Yeah, so there's a lot of that. It was weird because I had the kind of like one side of the Christian upbringing, but I didn't get the better side. You know, like
Mm,
I didn't get the faith and the all that. I mean, I didn't connect with Jesus at all.
mm,
Um, and I didn't know why Jesus died on a cross. I didn't understand all that because nobody really ever explained it. And then when I got into Krishna, and then I got into Gandhi, and then I started getting to really like Jesus. Then so I like Jesus, and I've read the Bible a lot since then.
mm.
But Christianity, I never connected with at all.
So, how did you meet the devotees? What was happening in your life around the age of, I think, 15, you said, that kind
Well,
of caused you to discover Krishna consciousness?
it started before then. The first meeting with a Krishna devotee was not very pleasant. It was in 1971, and I was 10. And I was walking down the street in Doncaster. I come from Doncaster originally. I was walking down the street, and this great big devotee suddenly came on me. And he had all the clothes on and what to me was this really weird haircut. And he had records in his hand. I think it was the Goddess of Fortune. And he said, "Oh, we've got this record by George Harrison, of the Beatles, because the Beatles only just split up then. And he was pushing it. I mean, I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I was a very shy child, and I was really frightened. And eventually, he took all my pocket money off me. And then he said, "You haven't given me enough for a record." And he gave me a magazine.
I'm quite
And it,
disturbed that he was harassing you when you were 10 years old to
he did.
start with.
Yes, I was so stressed. And I went back to my mum and grandma were in a cafe, and I'd gone to spend my pocket money. I went back, and my grandma gave me my pocket money back, and she said, "You're a bloody idiot." But that was my first, and it was not a positive one.
Hmm.
And in 1975, Christmas, my brother was at university studying to be a teacher, and he came home with a little cassette tape, and it had all Beatles songs on it. But in the middle of it, it had "Give Me Love" by George Harrison. And I don't know why, but it was just playing. And when "Give Me Love" came on, I thought, that is the God that I've always been searching for. I knew I was searching for a God and that the Christian one didn't work.
Hmm.
That's the God. And I don't know why now to this day, because on a superficial listening, it does sound like a Christian song. It doesn't automatically hit you that it's different, but something just told me it was. And then a couple of months later, I got the Living in Material World album. And of course, it had this great big picture. It had that picture of
Oh,
this.
fab. Bhagavad Gita as it is.
It
Wonderful.
has, and it has that picture inside on the lyric sheet. So I knew then what Krishna looked like, because I didn't know who Krishna was or anything. And so this was at the time I had a friend a male friend who was really a sort of boyfriend. There was attraction for us
Hmm.
both, but it was until the very end of our relationship, there was never anything physical or anything. I don't even know if we really knew. And John was probably more aware of it than me. I don't think I was very aware of it at all. I was very shy on that kind of thing. And I know we were walking down the street once, and ISKCON must have been giving the books to disabled people to sell in the street. And a disabled man came up to us with the third volume of the Krishna books. When they were in
Hmm.
paperback, they were in 3 volumes.
Hmm.
And we got this book. My friend John bought it, and then it had an introduction by George Harrison, which of course I was so keen on George Harrison at that time. I was really keen, so he gave it to me. So I read it, and I was very keen on myths, like Greek myths and
Hmm.
Norse myths and things like that. So I read it, and I read it a bit like that. It's like reading mythology.
Hmm.
But it got me interested. And then in February of 1977, when I was nearly 16, I decided to write to Bhaktivedanta Manor, which was advertised in the book. So I wanted to get the other volumes. And they sent me a magazine, Back to Godhead magazine. And I read this magazine, I read it to pieces. But right in the middle of it, there was this article, and it said why you should go vegetarian. And I think it was 3 reasons. And at the time, I was sort of listening to the Beatles, and I'd heard
Hmm.
about transcendental meditation
Hmm.
and Krishna songs and all that. And I knew it all went with vegetarianism. And I was thinking one day I'm going to go vegetarian. And when I got this magazine, I read it and it said vegetarians are more healthy. They don't get as much bowel cancer and all this. And I thought, well, there's no reason for me not to go vegetarian. Vegetarian. And I cut the piece out and I stuck it on my bedroom wall. It's about vegetarianism. And that's when I went vegetarian. And from that point on, going vegetarian was like the start of a commitment to something different in life, to living intentionally. I've never owned a car. We've never flown. We live, most of the things in our house are secondhand. We try to live sustainably, and, and it was a commitment to some kind of life. And I thought about joining Hare Krishna temple, and I wrote to. There was an article about Bhaktivedanta Manor, and the devotees were ploughing with cows, and I was very interested in the self-sufficiency kind of thing, and back to the land and that kind of thing. So I thought, well, this is great, and I thought about joining a temple, and I wrote to again, and I ordered the first and second volume of the Krishna books, but they were out of the first volume, so they sent me, I think it was the Nectar of Instruction. Which I was very stressed when I read it, because I started to feel the philosophy was heavy, and that got me very stressed. So I went, I'm maybe not going to join a temple, and I went searching for religion then. I went to the library and I used to look through all the books in the library. I'd read about Jainism and Buddhism and Sikhism and the Quakers. I got quite interested in the Quakers often, and then I come back to Krishna, and then it was like this, it's been like that for most of my life, really. But yeah, that's when I first got interested in Krishna. Then it was a mixed up time of trying different religions. At one time, me and Julia tried paganism for about a year, and then I went back, tried Krishna again, and after that was 1983. I ditched anything to do with that till the late 90s.
You mean like Krishna Consciousness?
And all Eastern religion, really. From about 1984 till about probably 1999, I experimented with Christianity. I tried the more spiritualist influenced New Agey sort of Christianity. We tried White Eagle Lodge. We read about the Essenes. In the 90s, we started going to the Church of England Church, and Julia still is a sort of Christian. She still goes to the Church of England Church. But then I started reading about Christian mystics, and I got really keen on the Christian mystics, and I read about B. Griffiths. B. Griffiths?
Yeah. I learned about B. Griffiths at my A levels. Yeah. So before university, 25 years ago.
So I read about B. Griffiths, and he was like this ashram in India, and they were things like, was it Om Jesu Christa Jaya Jaya Nam and things like that. That got me really keen on that whole thing. And then in 2002, it's Easter, and I was at church, and I'd just come across a copy of the Krishna book, and I bought this copy of the Krishna book, and I was just at church, and I sat there at church, and I thought, Jesus is not my God. Krishna is my God. My God figure is Krishna. I like Jesus, but he's not. And I just stopped going to church then, from that point on. And in 2002, I started experimenting with Krishna consciousness all over again. I started getting back to Godhead. And then I discovered the internet and found Galva, because the transitioning started around the same time. And so then I found Chakra. Chakra, it was like an internet group. It was done like a newspaper, and you clicked on it to go on the articles, and it was like liberal discussion on subjects.
I don't. Does it still exist today?
No. I think it finished. I'm probably about 10 years ago. I think but in about 2004 and 5, it was quite a big thing. And Galva, I got Galva from there. And these would be articles. There'd be articles about veganism. There'd be articles about brahmacharya and things like that, and articles about trans and gay. It's very, very good. It was a bit like the Hare Krishna project in a sense, but it was just like an online magazine,
Let's, I think, because I want to talk about two particular things, and I think they're probably going to overlap quite a bit. I want to talk about your journey as a trans woman, and I'd love to talk about your journey in Krishna consciousness, and they're probably going to overlap, I reckon. But let's start about, if you're okay with that, let's start about your journey as a trans woman in terms of when did it begin? I think you've already answered that anyway. And to share with us some of your experiences in terms of, I don't know, why you transitioned and what was going on in your life, and how you got from I don't know, from that point all those years ago to being in your early 60s, living as a woman in the north of England. Tell us a bit about that journey.
Well, it's, I mean, really, as a child, I mean, I had problems as a young child. I was very shy, and it's not a place to be if you're male. Boys are not expected to be shy. They're expected to be, and I wasn't a tree climber or anything like that. And I mean, even as a young child, I can remember, like we have infants and juniors. I don't think we have that now, but when I was a child at school, you had infants, and then you went into the juniors.
Yeah.
When we were juniors, we used a different toilet, and I was so frightened of using the toilet that I weed myself because I was frightened of all these big boys, And the teacher in one class sat me next to a girl, and we became really good friends. And then I just grew up until when puberty hit, it was like I felt like I was turning into a gorilla. But I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why I felt like this at all. And I'm not a very sexual person, but I'm actually would be bisexual if you had to define it. But things happen. Like I remember I got very into Cat Stevens, and I got this Cat Stevens record on. I opened it out, and inside there's this big picture of Cat Stevens with no top on, and it made me feel so uncomfortable that I stopped listening to the record. And I didn't know what these things all were. And then in 1976, I met John. And it was a kind of, like I said, it was a kind of funny relationship. It was sort of a gay relationship, but it was not physical. But John saw me as a female. He was the first person in my life to see me in a way that was more female. And I started liking more hippie things because, hippie men could dress more feminine. That was something I liked. And I got very much into Donovan, the singer Donovan. And Donovan definitely pushed the gender boundaries as far as you could possibly push them, and I love that. And I know John had seen this. There was this little shop in Doncaster called Kmart, and it sold Indian clothes and incense and art and things like that. He said, "Oh, they've got these robes in," and I thought, "Wow!" So I went with him to look at it, and it was like a blue kaftan dress, really. And he said, "Oh, you must try it on." And the woman in the shop was very open-minded, said, "Oh yeah, try it on." So I went into the changing room and tried it on. I came out, and they're all going, "Oh, you look wow in that." So I bought this long blue. It was nearly a dress. It was very close to a dress. Kaftan. And then when I got home and I put it on, my dad attacked me for wearing it, not wearing that, But that was all happening. And at the time, I was kind of like pushing the boundaries of masculinity. How far could you push them? And it caused a lot of trouble. It caused a lot of trouble. I remember sitting on a bus one day and somebody saying, "Is that a boy or is it a girl?" It was me. With like a red t-shirt on and lots of plastic beads and things. And that went on for a long time. And when I met Julia was okay. I mean, when I met Julia, I was really trying to be a man, because that's then what happens with a lot of trans people. They try to birth gender, and I grew a beard, and I wore big, thick, chunky jumpers, and I tried to be a man. When Julia met me, we kind of like fell in love in spirit. neither of us. Julia was a punk. I was this big man. We didn't really gel physically. We gelled spiritually, and that connection brought me back to the more feminine side of me. You know, it came back again with Julia. And I mean, there was one point, we lived in a caravan for 7 years in Doncaster, and there was one point where, you know, I was trying on dresses and wearing women's clothes a bit, but then I panicked. But for a long time after that, I wore women's t-shirts, women's sweatshirts, women's jeans, you know. So I was wearing women's clothes, but they didn't look like they were women's clothes. And I did that for a lot of years. And then I kind of like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I went back to wearing men's jeans and men's t-shirts. But then it came to 2002 when I was what, I'd be 41. And all my life there'd been this unhappiness that I'd never been able to satisfy it up. I tried religion, and religion hadn't even been able to fill. And I was trying a Buddhist practice called metta, loving kindness. And the first thing you do is you send loving kindness to yourself. And it was really strange doing this. Loving myself was really odd. And I started to think, I'm not feminine enough. I'm too masculine. And I thought that's all it was. You know, I wasn't comfortable with my feminine self. And then suddenly, as soon as I started thinking that, I wanted to wear one of Julia's dresses. And eventually Julia let me wear a dress. And I put it on and I felt, this is right. This is me. I'm a trans woman. I just knew this was like Christmas 2002. And but it's not as easy as that. It seems easy at the first thing, but it is not. You know, it was a long journey to get back to that point. And there's points where I bought women's dresses and things, and then I give them all away. You know, if I don't have them, I can't do it. You know? And then I started questioning my sexuality and wondering if I was gay. You know, it was a bad time, and it was a tough time for Julia to go through all this as well. You know, there's a lot of thing, you know, like trans people, but the partners and the children, they get awful. I mean, somebody said to Nick when he was at school, you know, are you going to become a woman as well? You know, things like that. And both our children got bullied very badly. We all did, you know. I mean, at one time the house was under siege. We used to get stones thrown at the windows. We got sausages put through the letterbox because they knew we were vegan. We got dog dirt put through the letterbox. And the police used to come, and because the house has a sort of a bit of a hippie look, the policeman was stood there and he was looking around at all the things. He's saying, well, why do you think you get it? And this was before I was really transitioned. This was where I was kind of like in some kind of middle ground, you know. And it was almost like I was blamed for it. And then when I actually did transition, I was sat at the kitchen table doing some studying because I was doing an open university degree. And all of a sudden there was a crack and the back window smashed. And so I called the police again, but the policeman who came this time was good. He said, this is hate crime. And straight away, the house was marked as a special place. They put CCTV cameras up. I got a visit from the hate crimes officer. Over the next few years, they undid all this violence and anger and nastiness that has been shown to us all, shown to Julia as well. I mean, people used to say things to Julia, are you a man? And things like that. It was awful, you know, it was a pretty awful time. And the police did eventually actually get on top of it. And it's not like that now. You know, it's just...
And you're still living in the same house?
We're still in the same. One of the problems we had was just over on the back, there was a family moved in, and all the boys were excluded from school for bad behavior. It was that. They used to congregate on the corner. We live in a terrace house, and we're the end terrace between another row of terraces. And they used to congregate on the corner, and all of those sort of people from Barn Elswick used to congregate on that corner. And so we were easy targets. You know, we were there. I mean, they ripped the fence off the wall. I put a fence up. I'm not very good at that sort of thing, but I put this fence up to give us a bit more privacy, and they just ripped it off the wall. And I put it up 3 times in 1 week, and they ripped it down 3 times. And they got the police, and the police said, oh, I said, it's this one person who's doing it. And they said, Oh no, it's random attacks. I thought 3 random attacks in the same week by the same person. It's just the way it was, you know. I mean, we stopped having plants in the garden because they just used to come in the garden and pull up all our flowers. And eventually the garden got full of trees because the children would get conkers and ash keys and throw them out in the garden. And then we had like little tubs and there was all plants, trees going. So we ended up, we've still got about 4 or 5 ash trees growing in the garden. You know, we've got like a little wood. And it's only a little
And so
yard.
this was in the people who
90,
the 90s,
2000.
2000s, yeah.
Yeah, it started about 98 and it went on till about 2010.
Wow, that's 12 years of abuse.
It was bad. You went out the door. I mean, Julia eventually started going shopping at a different time. She was one point, she was in a charity shop in Barnoldswick, and there was a gang banging on the window and shouting abuse at her. You know, it was bad. I mean, eventually the police did get to grips with it, but for a long time they did nothing and just didn't care.
And this was because you were transitioning,
I
or
was odd. Well, it was originally because I was odd. I mean, right at the beginning, I was just odd. You know, I used to wear collarless shirts and long scarves, and I just didn't look very manly. You know, and it's funny, but there was always people threatening to beat me up. And I mean, I was beaten up once in Doncaster very badly, and I physically assaulted a lot in Doncaster. I used to wear a long purple blanket, which didn't endear me to people. And it was the time, it was in the 80s when the young one was on. People used to shout "kneel" at me and thump me in the face, and it was pretty bad then. So I've had it all my life. It's kind of like not being a normal male. And the weird thing is that since I became a female, I don't get it. And a few years ago, my son and his girlfriend, there was a man on the doorstep trying to beat them up. He was trying to get into the house to beat them up. And I'd just gone to bed, and Julia said, "There's a big man on the doorstep, and he's trying to beat Nicholas and girlfriend up." So I got up in my nightie and I went downstairs, all right, sort of state. And I'm stood on the doorstep, stopping this man from coming in to beat everybody else up and facing him off. And he didn't hit me. I'm still surprised that I could stand there. Because when I went down, I thought, this is me going to get beaten up, you know. So I went downstairs and I stood on the doorstep and I stood him off. And eventually I got the door shut, you know, so he couldn't get in because he was trying to strangle Nick's girlfriend. He was trying to beat Nick up, you know. It was rough. It was a rough position. But it was funny that as a trans woman, I didn't get beaten up. You know, it's odd.
Can I ask a question now about your relationship with your children? What is it like now?
Well, it's very, very, very good, particularly with Nick. The problem with Laura is she's got Asperger's. We've all been diagnosed with Asperger's. And Laura, she lives in Germany as a nurse, and I don't think she really thinks about us. You know, we just don't. We see her at Christmas on YouTube. We have a chat at YouTube.
Yeah.
But it's not. She's not falling out with us or anything like that. It's just we're just whatever's in her circle is what happens in life. You know, and we're not there. Nick, he comes home. He's still got his bedroom here. You know, he sometimes stays. You know, he usually brings loads of friends.
How old are your children now?
Laura's 30 and Nick's 25.
Okay.
So Nick's just finished a master's in drama at Salford University. So now he's living at Salford. You know,
that's really good.
Yeah, and Laura's a nurse in Germany. She's really good at languages, Laura. She speaks lots of other languages and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, they were both home educated, which is another thing. They were home educated till they were 13, both of them. Then they went in the school system.
Was there a particular reason why you and Julia didn't send them to primary school?
Well, originally it was because Laura had a lot of problems. If we took her to any clubs, we took her to a thing called, I think it was called Tumble Tots, and it was like for little toddlers. And it was kind of like gymnastics for toddlers. But all she did was follow the teacher around. The teacher couldn't control her. And she went to a French group, and the French teacher threw her out. She said, everybody's bullying her because she's odd. And she said, I know it's not her fault. And she's actually better at French than any of the other children. She said, I just can't deal with it. So we thought, well, if she goes to school, they'll say she's a special. They'll put her in a special school. And we had previously been interested in home education because I don't really like the education system anyway. So we joined this group called Education Otherwise, which was for people who wanted to home educate. So we home educated Laura, and she virtually educated herself. I mean, she really did educate herself. She's got loads of qualifications. She's really clever. And then Nick, we thought we might as well home educate Nick. And then at 13, Laura suddenly said, I want to go to school. So we said, all right. So she went to school. And that was better because she could do exams, And like I said, she got a load of qualifications, so she needed to do exams, And then, so when we said to Nick, well, when you're 13, you can go into school, and then you've got a year, and then you can do your exams, which is what he did. And so
that's really good. Let's talk a bit now about your life as a devotee or trying to be a devotee. You mentioned, I think about 15 minutes ago, that your transitioning journey around 2002 also was around the same time that you kind of rekindled your relationship with Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that in terms of your relationship with the devotee community over the last 20 years. How have you been welcomed or received, if you have at all? And share with us some of your experiences over the last 20 years.
Yeah, well, I had in the 90s, I had I must have started getting a little bit interested in Krishna. I was still a Christian, and I had a correspondence with Kripa Moya from the Money for a while about Christianity. Quite an interesting conversation. And then, of course, I actually dropped the Christianity and became more Krishna. I mean, really, living in Barnoldswick, you're a long way from anywhere. You've got city. I think Leeds is 40 miles away. Manchester's probably about something similar. You're quite a distance from anywhere. And any really devotees. But I used to say, I started reading the books, and I started buying a lot of books secondhand. Like I said, I've got some original Krishna books. Like they're actually got the original London temple in them, got a little card. And they're really, I mean, the things of great beauty, they really are. And I bought a lot of secondhand old Bhaktivedanta book club. Is that what they're called?
Yeah. Bhaktivedanta Book Trust.
That's it. Yes, yeah. And our first Krishna book, I see it up here now.
The BBT, yeah. They produce the books for ISKCON, all the official publications.
And I bought a lot of those secondhand. There was Oxfam in Preston was particularly good because quite a strong Hindu community in Preston, so I got a lot of things like that. And so I got back to Godhead. I got some beads and I started chanting. And I got more and more into chanting, and then I used to bump into the devotees from the the Scottish temple, the Eco Farm.
Krishna Eco Farm, Karuna Bhavan, yeah.
They used to do a lot of book distributing around this area. Also Harrogate, Preston. I used to see them a lot in Preston and Leeds as well. And there was one devotee there, a tall devotee called Chaitanya Das, I think it was called.
Chaitanya Vallabha.
Yeah, he is
maybe,
really
yeah.
Thin.
Yes, he's quite tall and thin. If that's who you. Which year was this?
This would probably be about. It must have been about 2002 or 3, I think.
I think Chaitanya Vallabha was a brahmachari at that time, so he was wearing saffron.
That's right.
Yes. I'm pretty sure he was living at Karuna Bhavan, the Scottish temple, about 20 years ago.
And it bumped into my mother in Doncaster, and although my mother doesn't like me being involved in Krishna, she must have been chatting to him about me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I got. I just said something. He said, "Oh, are you from Doncaster?" I said, "Yeah, it's your mother today." And so we got chatting. And at that time, I was still presenting as a man. Now, I bumped into him regularly over the next few years, and I got more and more middle ground. And he never had a problem with it. Never. Just to see him. And then when I started looking as a woman, I don't know if I didn't see him as much around that time, but he never had a problem with it at all. I would say he had no problem. I would say the actual Scottish devotees, the different ones I used to see, none of them seemed to have a problem with it. And I got a lot of books off them and things. I can remember Julia once went and bought a big bag of fruit for them. And she said, "Here's a big bag of fruit." And they were so thrilled with it, And then from them I learnt about Manchester Ratha Yatra. And so in 2008, I went to the Ratha Yatra for the first time. And then by that time I was presenting as a woman. But I didn't really have any problems. I mean, I danced with the female devotees. If there was any edginess, it tended to be the senior devotees more than just ordinary people. Which is interesting because with Christians, I've tended to find it's ordinary people. You know, with Christians, they're all right after a few meetings, but at first they're very edgy, you know, as if they might catch the disease I've got or something, you know, they stand back a bit, you know. Then after a bit, when they get to know you and they realize you don't bite, they get all right. But I noticed that I didn't have that problem with Vaishnavas. There were Indians, English people, you know, but you know, white, you know what I mean. It was, you know, or the same. It was no problem. It was just accepting me for what I was. You know, nobody raised any issues. But I always noticed there was more reticence from the senior devotees.
In terms of they didn't want to talk with you, or they want to spend time with you, or
it's a bit edgy. And I mean, it got a situation that I started going to Ratha Yatra, and then in 2011, I think it was. So 2012, I bumped in one of the devotees in Leeds, one of the Scottish devotees, and he said, "Oh, we're getting a group together in Leeds, meeting once a month." But it's a long journey from Barnoldswick to get to Leeds on public transport on a Sunday. It's difficult. But I did manage to go. And the first meeting they were having, they had an ISKCON guru, Jana, began with a J anyway, whatever he was.
A white man, Janardhan Maharaj. Janananda Maharaj. It could be. Yeah.
He did a lot in around the Leeds group and in this area.
Yeah, I think it's Janananda Maharaj.
Yeah. At this time, I was chanting. I mean, the Leeds group people, when I contact them, the lady who dealt with the more female devotees dealt with me, you know, so that was very accepting. And at that time, I'd got to chanting 16 rounds. Just chanting a lot. I was chanting 16 rounds. So she said, you know, you should seek initiation. And I was a little bit nervous about that. And also there's I mean, I'm for chastity, but celibacy in marriage, I don't really agree with. Don't agree with that. So there was that problem to start with, you know. But then I went to when I went to this time, and this man was there. Everybody was saying, you know, seek initiation from him, you know. So I asked him. I said, at the end of, he'd give a talk. We're not this body. I thought, well, this is positive, you know. So when it finished, I went up to him and I asked him, you know, would you consider initiating me? And it was very insulting and very hurting. I mean, he asked me what I was called before, which didn't seem to be remotely relevant.
Do you feel comfortable sharing with us what he said?
I can't really. It's a long time ago, 2012, but roughly it was. Julia was with me, and Nick was only a little then. Nick was still with us, as you know, he'd come to the temple that day. And he asked me what my name was before, and then he kind of like qualified it. Have you ever been initiated as a man? But I felt he was asking me what my male name was, and you do get that sometimes. People will say, "What's your real name?" You know, because they want to be able to place you back where you were before. You know, and it felt like that. And he asked Julia about our sex life, and that seemed very, very intrusive and insulting. I felt very insulted. I didn't feel very happy. And he said, "Well, we'll think about it." So just after that, I had my surgery. And then when I came out from my surgery, I've had ME since I had my surgery. I suffer from ME, and it was brought on by the surgery. So when I'd had the surgery, when I was starting to get well enough to go back to the Leeds, I went, and he was there once, and it was chanting in the street. And everybody was like sat on a bench, and he was saying hello to everybody individually. And he went right round me. The person next to me there, the person behind me, he never said hello to me or anything, never spoke to me at all. And that was so hurting, you know. And around this time, I picked up a book called The Kitchen of Love, done by the Pure Bhakti group.
Narayan, Srila Narayan Maharaj.
Yeah. I liked it. I liked that book a lot, you know, and I thought, I like this. And then slowly over time, I started to read some of the things that Narayan Maharaj had said about like veganism. He was a bit more vegan friendly. Obviously, he was more women friendly. I know Amara Das told me that he fully supported Galva and the work that was and all that. So I got very interested in him, and I came across some Liverpool devotees, and they were book distributing. They had a table giving away free books of his books, and I had no books by him. They were very difficult to get. So they sent me a big box of books for free. You know, that's great now. And this one is still one of my favorite books. This one.
What's the book called?
Bhajana Rahasaya by Bhaktivinoda Thakura.
Wow.
Got a commentary by Srila Narayana, and it's I love it. It's one of my favorite books. So I got lots of books for free, and I used to go once a month, and I used to help them at the table, and I used to really love doing that. But
this was in Liverpool. This was in Liverpool. Yeah.
This was in Liverpool, but something went wrong. Something started to go wrong. Now, at the same time, I was also going to Leeds, and I was ill because I've got ME. So it was like, do this and then recover for a month, do it all again. You know, it's a bit like that. I was kind of like saving what money I had. I wasn't working anymore because I'd lost my job. And it was a difficult time, but I was putting everything into Krishna consciousness, you know. And the travel, I mean, to get to Leeds, I had to get a bus to Leeds, to Skipton, and then wait an hour on Skipton station to get a train to Leeds, and then walk 2 or 3 miles to where the centre was, do all the entire thing there, and then rush away just after the prashad. I managed to have to rush away to get the train, but Julie used to go with me. We used to have to walk back into Leeds, then get a train to Keighley and get off at Keighley because there was no buses from Skipton at that time on a Sunday. Then we'd have to get a bus from Keighley to Cone, and then from Cone to Barnoldswick. And it was like, you know, it was like a full day job, and I have ME, so you can imagine it was quite knocking up.
Well, most people would struggle to walk 2 or 3 miles. I mean, and you know, I take my hat off to you for doing it whilst you've got ME as well.
Well, I used to walk 15 miles, you know, as a regular thing. So, I mean, 4 miles is not a walk for me, but, you know, yeah. So I was doing all that, and then suddenly something went wrong in Liverpool. I don't know what it was. One of the devotees there seemed to take a dislike to me without really saying why. And it got to a head. In Manchester Ratha Yatra in October 2013, I was talking to a woman. There used to be I don't know if it's still there. Have you ever heard of Sri Ramana Dev? She's like a
Sri Ramana Dev. She's a devotee. Vedantic. No.
Ramana Maharishi. No, Ramana Maharishi. She's a follower in that trend, and she has like a vegan animal sanctuary and little temple, Rottenstall Way, somewhere like that. And one of her devotees was in Manchester giving away free food. And this devotee, she didn't know about the Rath Yatra, and she bumped into me and we were chatting to her. And she was interested. I was explaining what the Rath Yatra was about. And I had a little book, The Way of Love, which by
Narayan Maharaj. Yeah, I think I've got that here. I've got different sections and different gurus, and I think I've got that. I've got a Narayan Maharaj section on my bookshelf.
Yeah,
I think it's over that way. But yeah, I think I have that book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the books that I got back.
Yeah.
Like I got this book back because I like it so much. And so I showed her it, and she really liked the look of it. I said, well, look, I said, you have mine. I can get another copy. So I gave her mine. So when I went back home, I contacted the Liverpool devotees to get another copy. And I got a lecture for consorting with impersonalists. And I'm like, what? And then I got a PDF sent about Buddhism and how wicked Buddhism was, which was quite an insulting book towards Buddhism, I felt. It wasn't a nice book. And so that led to, at first I didn't say anything, you know, and then I started saying things like, well, Buddha's an avatar. Did you notice that bit? And things like that. So it ended up with a fallout, you know. But then I started getting messages from anonymous people saying that I was going around telling everybody I was an initiated devotee of Narayana. And I got so frightened I didn't put the computer on in case these messages popped up when you're suddenly on the computer. And I got stressed, and I cleared Facebook. I got rid of all the friends I had on Facebook because I didn't know which ones were which. Yeah, I had lots and lots of Hare Krishna devotees on there, and I didn't know who was who. You know, because you say a friend request and you click like, and then somebody sends you a friend request, you know, and you click like, and then you end up with all these people. You don't know who they are really.
Most of my friends on Facebook I've never met. People keep sending me requests.
Yeah. And I didn't know which ones were to do with Narayana, which ones were to do with ISKCON or what. And I just got rid of everybody. And I almost kept, other than I kept in touch with my children via Facebook, I just came off it, you know. And I got into this really bad situation where, because I'd fallen out with the Narayana devotees, but I felt more attached to his teachings. I thought, well, I'll serve his teachings through ISKCON. Now, I had a dream. This was before I got into Narayana. I had this strange dream. And Narayana Maharaj and a devotee were walking into a bingo hall. I mean, I thought bingo hall, the world, you know. So they're walking into this bingo hall, right? But as they go in, and watch them go in, that's it. And then they come out a bit later on. When they come out a bit later on, he just looked at me with his really piercing eyes and he said, do some service. Very abrupt. And I'd never really seen any videos of him. I'd seen vague pictures of him and things. But later on, when I watched a video of him, he talked in that exact way, that very abrupt, you know, do some service, like that. And I kind of I thought, well, he's asking me to do something, so I will do some service, you know. So I thought, well, I can't go to Liverpool anymore. What do I do now? I thought, well, I still go to Leeds. And I thought, well, there's lots of active Hare Krishna groups. I'm discovering that there was a group in Preston. So I got a request on their Facebook page, and I got a message back, and it was from the devotees in Scotland. They must run all that. And it said, you're not going to be allowed to join any of our groups because we've seen you in Liverpool, and you're following Narayana Maharaj, and they worship Radhe, and Radhe's, that's heresy. Prabhupada didn't say this. And unless you renounce all of that, you're not going to be allowed to do anything. So I said, well, at the moment, I've fallen out with these devotees, and what you're saying is not true. And it kind of like a truce. So they said, oh, well, you're all right, provided you don't push your beliefs on us, you can come to things. I got to that point where I got very disillusioned of going to something. I know in 2014, I went to an ISKCON kirtan in the street. And the ordinary devotees were still friendly, but there was this kind of there was a devotee who was doing the kirtan. It was friendly, but he was not as friendly. There was this kind of feel that, you know, well, this is a heretic, you know, it was there. And then I tried different groups, like, you know, people said, like on Galva, that said, have you tried Swami Tripurari? You know,
Tripurari, yeah, Swami Tripurari, yeah.
So I got some of his books, and then some site somewhere, somebody was on about Prabhupada's books, and I just said that, you know, for people who were a long way from anywhere, the books were something, you know. And this man had put, you need a guru in the flesh. And I said, but we've got Prabhupada's books. And he put, you need a guru. And I said, well, I don't live anywhere near a temple. And he put, move. And I thought, so you're telling me, right, I should leave my wife, leave the place I really love to go and live in some city somewhere, but two big gurus going to put two fingers up at me because I'm trans. I thought, I'm worth more than this.
Absolutely.
And I got all my books, and over the next 2 years, I just completely eradicated everything virtually, apart from an odd picture and a few very special books. And in 2016, I came across the teachings of Swami Satchidananda, Integral Yoga Institute, America. Came across his teachings and various other people's teachings. And I'm not an impersonalist. I have no interest in impersonalism. And I still felt an attraction to Krishna, but Swami Satchidananda's writings were so tolerant and inclusive. And he would even say things like, if what I'm saying to you doesn't agree with you, go find what your pace somewhere else, And that open-mindedness, I thought, this is what I need. This is what I need. This is what I need to heal. So I got quite keen into his teachings. And I'd stopped chanting, but I was like doing a more silent meditation without beads. But I was still using the Krishna mantra, but more with breath. But then I was working in housing benefits last year. I've been working there since 2016. And I started to get very, very ill last year, more ill. Even though I was working from home, I couldn't work, and I had to go on sick, and then I lost my job. I lost my job in December, and I was so ill that I couldn't meditate in the morning. I could only meditate on the night time. I was meditating on the night time because I normally meditate twice a day. I was just meditating on the night time, and I thought, I'm sitting here, and all I'm really doing is watching the clock. I'm thinking, how long is this going to be? And I'm not getting anything out of this. And I thought, I need to chant. Well, I had no beads. I had nothing. So I started chanting on my fingers, like that. And Julia had some Christian meditation beads, which I like 33 beads on. So I started using those. But it was really weird because this was like I think it was the day before they officially finished me at work. And I started this chanting. And the next night, there was a message from the Liverpool devotees. How are you doing? We haven't heard from you for 9 years, as if nothing had ever happened. There had never been any disagreements. And I said, well, I've just started chanting again, but I haven't got any beads. And so we'll send you some. So they sent me some beads and some bead bags, and they offered to send me a crate of books, but I said, no, I'm not going down that road, But I started chanting and watching kirtan videos, and I've started offering some of my food. I don't like doing it all because I think if you're not careful, it can become by rote. I've seen people offering food and they garble the prayers.
You've got to do it from the heart. Don't do it because it's a chore or it feels like a chore. You should do it because you want to do it. You feel that loving desire to do it. It's the same with chanting.
Yes, it is.
You should do it because you really want to do it. There's a loving desire to do it.
That's right, yeah. And then I've been chanting about 4 rounds a day since then. I've definitely come on with that, but I feel very much like more like a universalist. I'm not organized religion. I don't want anymore, I mean, this is how I came to your pages, really, because I saw the Hare Krishna project and what it was doing, and I thought, well, that's what needs to be done. There was a video put on, I think you'd put it on, of some devotees at a Pride. I think that was it, yeah. And I thought, yeah, that's the kind of thing, and this idea that there's people like me. I mean, I don't like being called an impersonalist, but you get that, you're impersonalist. I mean, somebody once said, I'd put a picture of Yogananda on my page for something, a quote by him. Somebody said he's an impersonalist, and I thought, well, that's debatable anyway. But just because you're not mainstream doesn't mean you're an impersonalist. I mean, Julia takes issue with this because they'll say Christians are impersonalists because they worship a formless God. But Julia has been brought up with a formless personal God. That is Christianity, a formless personal God. I mean, there are Christians who veer towards monistic type impersonalism points sometimes, but they tend to be in the few. Most Christians they see the Holy Trinity as 3 persons in one, as it says. So they are personalists. They just don't have a physical form. And I mean, I've been brought up with that, and that feels more natural to me, to think that God's got this physical form and that's it. I find that difficult. So I find it more easy to think of God as not having a physical form necessarily. I mean, but at the same time, God appears to me as Krishna, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
When I'm talking to God, I talk to
Mm.
Radha, you know, but
Mm. Well, I mean, I guess a few things from me, just to chip in. Firstly, is that what we're doing at the Hare Krishna project, we're trying to make Vaishnavism more inclusive. We're trying to show that Vaishnavism is for everyone, not just the straight heterosexual men. Imagine how boring it would be if it was just straight heterosexual men involved in the Hare Krishna movement, thinking they could just boss people around all the time. So Lord Chaitanya, he came for everyone 500 years ago, not
yes,
just people who looked a particular way or behaved a particular way. He came for
yes,
everyone liberally. He wanted everyone to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. And when Srila Prabhupada and other acharyas came to the West in the 1960s, he did so to distribute the chanting of the holy names with everyone and anyone, with
yes,
all of us sinners in the Western world, not just people that conform to a particular standard.
yes,
Um, I think one of the great things today is that because the Hare Krishna world is so broad and diverse, you will find, I hope you find a group of devotees that you kind of really fit in with. If you want to fit in, also you have the choice not to fit in. You don't have to fit in. And so there are so many different groups represented in the UK, and there's so many things online, like the Hare Krishna project. You've
yes,
also got Galva. You've also got Bliss, which are a wonderful group of devotees in London.
yes.
Bliss, yeah, the Bhaktivedanta Lives in Sound Society.
Mm,
And so there are so many groups
mm,
following Prabhupada, following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who are just out there preaching and sharing Krishna consciousness. And for me, it's completely irrelevant that you're a trans woman. It's completely irrelevant. I couldn't care less what you are, who you are. You're interested in Krishna consciousness. You should have the freedom to chant. Um, you know, one of the problems with institutions is they become quite top down and authoritarian. And
mm,
ISKCON, you've probably seen a lot of this on the internet. ISKCON, I think, is going through this kind of spiritual purge at the moment. A lot of
mm,
stuff's being sorted out spiritually, and it might take about 10 years. But the
yes,
beauty of Krishna consciousness is that you can practice Krishna consciousness if you want to without the shackles of an institution. you
yes,
know
yeah.
and there are a lot of people that also say you can just follow Prabhupada without having a living guru.
Yeah,
there's
it's good.
different and there's different ways to look at that. I'm not coming off the fence and giving a particular view. I'm just saying you can follow Prabhupada if you want to without a living guru by
Can I
just
just,
read. Yeah, go ahead.
can I just read you a quote from Prabhupada?
Yes, please.
This is something that I really love.
Mm,
It's from the London Rath Yatra in July 72. Our movement is based on chanting, dancing, and taking prasadam. Even if you do not take interest in the books, if you become attracted to these three things, you will progress. You will gradually understand Krishna, and when you understand Krishna, you will not have to accept another material body, but come to Krishna in his spiritual world. That is such a beautiful quote.
mm, mm,
Um, and it's very much what you're saying.
mm.
It's basically saying Krishna consciousness. I think of them the three jewels of Krishna consciousness: chanting, kirtan, prasadam. No other religion has something like that.
The first basic teaching of Krishna consciousness is not that Krishna is God or Radha Krishna are God. That's kind of a very close second. The very first fundamental teaching of Krishna consciousness is that we are not the body. Firstly, you
Yes,
have to try and understand that first spiritually, intellectually, philosophically. We're not the body. This body isn't who we really are. So my take on that is it's completely irrelevant whether you're male or female or trans woman or trans man or whatever label you're using at this point in your life. It actually, to me, it doesn't matter. We're not these bodies anyway. We're all eternal spiritual beings.
that's
And we are all in we're living our lives, or we're in these positions in our lives today based on past lives, things that have happened in the past. You're a trans woman now because of lots of things, and that's who you are in terms of the life that you're living.
yeah, yeah.
And for some bizarre reason, I've appeared as a heterosexual male in this life. you know so and I think it's sad that even though we're Krishna consciousness is the philosophy that preaches that more than any other. It needs to get better at practicing it, that we're not the body. It doesn't really matter whether you're, however you identify with yourself. And we have to become much more inclusive to welcome people into the Krishna consciousness movement.
I think one of the problems is like when you go to gay pride and things like that.
Mm.
If you go to gay pride and you preach consciousness, but then a gay person is told, well, you can't have a gay marriage, we don't do gay marriage, sorry, you're second rate. I mean, people used to say to me, you don't have to be initiated. And I've had a lot of trouble. They said, you don't have to be initiated. And I think they're always called Das or Devi Das, these people who say this.
Yeah.
And if you don't have to be initiated, then what's the point of it? I don't bother with initiation if you don't have to be initiated. It doesn't make any difference. But it does make a difference, because when all the shit was flying for me, there was nobody I could turn to. I mean, Amara Das was probably the best person I could turn to. There was nobody else I could turn to. Nobody who could say, I'm having these problems, I need support. And there was no support. Whereas if I'd been initiated and I'd been part of something, I'd have had that support theoretically. But support, So
what is, if at all, what is your relationship like today with ISKCON and also with the Narayana Maharaj group? What is?
I said the Liverpool devotees have sent me. They put a lot of things on my Facebook page, a lot of posts. I don't go on Facebook a lot, so I don't really see what they're putting on most of the time. But they're all right.
You should vet it, see what they're up to.
They look all right, but I'm just not. What do you call it? I follow a devotee on Facebook and YouTube called Krishna Kripa. He's a sannyasi and he lives in America off and on, and he comes to Europe. And he basically just travels, but I think he does 3 hours.
Krishna Kripa, yeah, Krishna Kripa. I met him many years ago. He was recently in Ireland.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. He goes around and he puts some really good just Sankirtan videos, people chanting in the street, and I watch a lot of those.
He's quite, I would say, flamboyant. I would say, to some extent, in his own way, he's quite flamboyant. He's definitely an extrovert. He's out there, and
It was. I mean, he gives a nice talk. I've met him in Leeds, and I went chanting in the street with him a few times in Leeds when I used to go to Leeds. And so I connected with him then. But then I've been watching his videos. His videos are really good because the 2 or 3 minute videos and the it's like the devotees in Philadelphia, and there are all sorts of devotees. You put some. I mean, I know there's one. All the devotees had Western clothes on virtually. And somebody put at the bottom, like people, where's the Indian clothes, So they seem all sorts of someone in Philadelphia called Bhakti Garden. That looked quite, something like the Bhakti Garden.
In terms of, and also you also mentioned Swami Tripurari. He kind of runs the Sri Chaitanya Sangha. What did you have any connection with him or his disciples?
I mean, I read his book Aesthetic Vedanta, which was a very good book. I think I read another book by him, but I just didn't really connect. So I connected most with Srila Narayana, and the way he could often talk about it's what you feel inside. Krishna sees what's inside, not what you're doing on the outside. And I connected a lot with that. And obviously, like I said, he was more sympathetic towards things like veganism, which is another thing which has caused me problems. That's another big issue with the movement. So, yeah, but I think at the moment, the big thing I chant. And at one time, going back years, I got a lot out of chanting. And I go back to like 2012 and 2013. Like chanting was just so fantastic, I couldn't get enough of it, and I've lost that kind of like early marriage. It's more like the long term now, and I chant.
The novelty's worn off a little bit.
Yeah, something, yeah. But it has left me. I mean, chanting does give me a great deal of inner peace. so I get a lot out of that. I'd
That's what
like
it's
to,
for.
yeah. I mean, I'd like to do an online kirtan, like where you put a video on, or records. I've got a lot of records and stuff, and just do kirtan in my own house, chanting
Mm,
it. But because I'm ill, I can't do that. I can't
mm.
do it. I'm too ill. Um,
I mean,
and I,
my advice to you would be to carry on doing what you're doing. Chant the Hare Krishna
yeah,
mantra, read devotional books written by Narayana Maharaj, by Srila Prabhupada, if you feel
yeah,
comfortable, if you want to, and if you ever want to, I mean, Galva is a great organization to go for advice and support for people that that are trans or LGBT, and certainly myself or Amara at Galva can get, if you wanted to, could give you a list of gurus or sannyasis that are a bit more pro LGBT. There are a number of them,
yeah.
in different mats, in different sanghas. I was actually just looking up Burnley on the map because I'm terrible at geography. And I can see that you are kind of in the middle of different cities and different places.
Yeah.
There is quite an active group now in Blackpool,
Is it
but
really?
I think Blackpool might also be a bit far away for you.
It's very difficult to get. It's sort of quite a long journey. Yeah, Manchester and Leeds are the easiest places to get to, of big places. But I probably, after having so many negative experiences, I probably steer clear. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I did mention a number of names to you before we started doing
mm,
this broadcast, and there was one name of one devotee who's quite I won't say her name now, but she's quite she lived as a man for one point. I don't want to speak out of turn. She's living in the Manchester area,
yeah, yeah.
and I could connect you with her offline if you.
Manchester Ratha Yatra still happen? Because
I believe so.
I couldn't find anything about it. I searched Manchester Ratha Yatra and all sorts, and all I was getting was old videos from 2016. I couldn't find anything at
Well,
all.
I have to say, as someone who works in PR and marketing, the Hare Krishna movement isn't very good at PR and marketing. And if you only learn about an event if you're looking for it. Oh, I want to find this, and in your case, you didn't find out about it. But the Hare Krishna movement needs to be a lot better at promoting what they're doing to the outside world,
Yes.
because the movement isn't going to grow if it's meant to grow. Some devotees don't want it to grow, by the way. But
And I can see one of the problems I've had with the movement when I was actually active in the movement was you spend all this, you go to great lengths to get somebody converted. Then when they're converted,
yeah.
let them go. What was the point of that? They come to the meeting and nobody talks to them.
Yeah, and you're not the first person to say that. I hear that on a regular basis. It's so long to make a devotee, whatever that means, make a
Yeah,
devotee, and then they're treated like shit once they're in the movement.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And also, just to say, I feel like I'm on one now, a bit of a rant, but also I'm not going to mention his name, but the guru that you mentioned earlier,
yeah.
I have a female friend who also had very negative experiences of him, in terms of he didn't even look at her or acknowledge her existence. And she was standing right in front of him. And the whole time he was looking at me, looking away from her. And she just, neither of us could believe what was happening.
Yeah.
It was like she didn't exist or she was invisible.
Yes, yeah,
So yeah, I've heard, unfortunately, other things about that particular guru as well.
yeah. That
Um,
doesn't surprise me because that's what
um,
to me to some degree. Yeah.
I mean, it's been wonderful to, we believe it or not, we've been chatting for, my goodness, at least an hour,
Mm,
hour 15 minutes, recording this podcast, and it's been really, I've really appreciated you sharing your story. I'll reveal to our viewers or our listeners, one of the reasons I wanted to invite Jennifer onto the podcast is because I have done some podcasts around trans issues before, but there's a lot of rhetoric in the national media at the moment in the UK about trans rights, largely because of the government, or certain politicians keep going on about it. And I wanted to give a bit of airtime to members of the trans community because, well, I just try and see people as people. To me, it's irrelevant, however people identify. And so Jennifer was very keen or very happy to accept the invitation to come on the podcast. And I have to say, I find you very inspiring.
thank you.
Uh, the stuff that you've gone through over the last 45 years, even the things that might be considered as very small, like becoming a vegan in 1981. That was before I was even born, Jennifer.
Yes.
You know, and you know, you're a bit of a maverick, kind of going out there and doing stuff. And I was actually a bit tearful about half an hour ago when you talked about the abuse that you went through because of the lads on the street.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be treated any differently from anyone else. And
No.
ignorance makes me so angry.
No. I mean, the thing that I still think about the world, a lot of things have changed, but for some reason the world seems to end if a man puts on a dress, and I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
If a man wears makeup, but why? Women wear trousers all the time. You know, at one time women never wore trousers; they wore dresses. They didn't wear trousers. Now women wear trousers, and it's perfectly acceptable. But it's not acceptable for, irrespective of transgender. It's not acceptable for a man to just wear a dress. You know. And I still do not know why it's the end of the world if a man puts on a dress, you know. I mean, I experienced this at work, you know, when I changed my gender at work.
Mm.
You know, it was like it was the end of my career. I knew it was coming, you know, eventually. But why does it make so much? Not how good your work is, but just
People are fearful of change. People are scared of change. People, we live in these comfort zones where this is the way it's always been and this is the way it always will be. But people are afraid of things that they're not um they're not used to. I mean, I would consider myself as quite liberal, quite progressive, but the number of trans people that I actually know is probably a very, very small number of people because this trans community is so small,
mm,
which is why it baffles me. The government keeps going on about it. I mean, this is a very small number of people you keep talking about. What's the obsession?
yeah.
um, okay, well, I think I'll say goodbye now, Jennifer, to the viewers at home, and then you and I will have a bit of a debrief after. But Jennifer from a place that I keep forgetting and can't pronounce. What was the name of the place?
Barn Elswick.
Barn Elswick. Jennifer from Barn Elswick. I love that. It's like a game show, isn't it?
The locals call it Barlick.
Barlick. Oh God.
And I was surprised when you didn't say, because sometimes if you say you're from Barnoldswick, it doesn't matter who you're talking to, they'll say, oh, Barlick. You know.
Yeah. Barn Olswick. Well, Jennifer from Barn Olswick, it's been wonderful to have you as guest number 86 on the Hare Krishna Project podcast. And it's been great to listen to your story and hear your story. And I hope, I'm coming off the fence a little bit, I hope that you do feel comfortable and find a home in Lord Chaitanya's movement, because there is a place for you. That's what the movement is about. It should be about inclusion. So a big thank you to Jennifer. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do put that press that all important subscribe button so you can hear about more podcasts in the future. And please do send some feedback, constructive feedback. That's really important to us here at the Hare Krishna Project. We're trying to create a more inclusive environment in the Hare Krishna movement. And also, if you're watching this on Facebook, please do like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page to keep updated about what we're up to. And also, we regularly travel around the UK when we find the time to go and do stuff. That sounds a bit open-ended. To distribute books, to organise kirtan events, to visit schools. We're very keen to distribute books in schools as well. So until next week, we'll see you all soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Bye. Hare Krishna.